Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm. I'm your host, Andy Bernstein. If you've been following our podcast, you know we have some interesting guests who may not be household names, but are deeply involved with sports behind the scenes. Our guest this week fits that description perfectly. Dr. William Parham is the inaugural director of the NBA Players Association's Mental Health and Wellness Program. He is also a professor at Loyola Marymount School of Education's School Counseling Program. Bill's mantra is, mental health is mental wealth. He is at the forefront of vital work with current and former NBA players so they can perform and live life at the highest level, on and off the court. I've known Bill for a long time. Our paths would cross at games and we'd chat a little now and then over the years, but I was always curious to what he exactly did in the mental health space. So sitting down with him for this interview was a pleasure and incredibly informative. We had an engaging conversation about how mental health issues in sports have come out of the shadows in recent years, led in a big part by the great late Jerry West, sharing his struggles in his 2011 autobiography. Bill talks about the, quote, invisible tattoos we all carry from childhood experiences and sometimes from trauma. Here at Legends of Sport, we are proud to continue the important conversation about mental health awareness in sports. Big thanks to past guests Kevin Love, Jerry West, Bob Delaney, and now Dr. William Parham for enlightening me and all of us. I really enjoyed this conversation and hope we can book Bill for a longer one sometime soon. I hope you enjoy it too, and as always, I'll see you on the backside. Well, it's a big pleasure to welcome Dr. William Parham to the Legends of Sport podcast. Here we are at Summer League. You and I, we're kind of connected at the hip at the arena. We see each other all the time. But this is the first time you and I have had the chance to sit down and actually talk. And we're going to have more of an opportunity down the road to do a longer conversation. But Bill, give me just a 30,000-foot view of what you do and what you're here for.
Two things that I do. One, I serve as the director of the Mental Health and Wellness Program for the National Basketball Players Association.
Right.
A role that was created in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, there were a number of marquee players who came forth, basically saying we're willing to continue to hoop, but there's something that we need to work on.
Right.
Personal struggles. And so to the PA's credit, Player Association's credit, they listened to the voice of the players. They designed a program, put together a program, asked me to be the inaugural director, and I've been serving in that role since 2018. And we have built a program that really is responsive to all 450 athletes, but also others in their support role, family, et cetera.
Yeah.
And we have sort of a 4-point program that we've created, and we're looking to do more of that, expand what we're doing. In addition, I teach. I'm a professor at Loyola Marymount University. I teach a number of courses, one of which is trauma psychology, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But the gist in pulling both of those two together, I'm always interested in the person and not the performer. The performer is secondary.
Yeah.
The student is secondary. It's who are you as a person.
Very interesting.
And one of the things that always, as a sidebar, attracted me to your art is in your photos. It's not just photography. You capture the person, in my opinion. And I've always felt aligned with that. But anyway, that's just been my mantra.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Because at the end of the day, that's what you take with you. And your whole life's journey is who you are and what you represent. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
No, it's true.
So you spoke about 2018 being sort of the time when mental health issues and mental health awareness came to the forefront. Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, athletes from other sports, Michael Phelps, Simone Biles, of course. I like to think about it happened a lot sooner than that, and specifically with our good friend and the late Jerry West, who I adored. Jerry released his book in 2011, Jerry West, West by West.
Charmed and Tormented Life.
Charmed and Tormented Life.
Yeah.
It went basically unnoticed, and he bared his soul in that book. Jerry was never one for tooting his own horn or wanting to be, except for being
Correct.
on the logo, which
Yeah.
it wasn't his choice either.
Right.
Did you ever have a conversation with Jerry about all that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to have met him, talk with him. He's
Mm-hmm.
very candid and open about his journey, some of his early struggles.
Yeah.
He was clearly a master of staying out of the limelight,
Mm-hmm.
even casting it away.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
And as I understood him and read his book, it made perfect sense why. Because pulling people close to you, there's a risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people who shouldn't be risky are the biggest perpetuators of the risk.
Yeah.
And so it made perfect sense to
Yeah.
me. But I think in all, he was very humble, very gifted, but his work spoke for him. And I think even his passing, his legend continues. It will continue.
Yeah.
In fact, we hosted a summit in September, the National Basketball Players Association. It was a global summit
Yeah.
on the mental health and wellness of elite athletes. And he was kind enough to prepare a letter. He couldn't be there himself.
Interesting. Okay.
And the letter was read first.
Yep.
There wasn't a dry eye in the place.
No.
But it really set the tone for, again, the person and the athlete that we want to elevate and illuminate. And you mentioned the conversation started in 2018, but it really broke through. These conversations have been going on for decades.
But kind of in the shadows, right? In
Deliberately
the
in the shadows, because I'm convinced, and I say this with some caution, I've been around major systems, both sports, across sports,
yeah.
but also government agencies. And the main mantra is that, well, yeah, we've failed at addressing these issues over the course of time, so now it's my bad, let's do something about it. I don't believe that at all. I believe that a lot of systems have succeeded at not wanting to address those issues.
Yeah.
And because it keeps the hunger and the dog and the fight. But I'm an advocate for there's a cost to that.
Yeah.
And if, in fact, in one of our principles, if guys are hooping at Hall of Fame levels, literally Hall of Fame levels, carrying around the kind of baggage that they do, if we could give them a place and a space to lay down their burden and begin that journey of healing,
Yeah.
I would predict we'd see four things. An exponential increase in the individual expression of talent, team chemistry, because everybody say, okay, let's all do this. The other teams would say, what are they doing? Let's have a cross-team
Yeah.
rivalry. You see increased competition, increased excitement in the fan base, as evident by increased ticket sales for games and paraphernalia. So when you invest in the mental health and wellness of athletes, you in fact, everybody wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we're really trying to get across. And again, Jerry,
Yeah.
the very logo is calling you to pay attention to those issues.
Yeah, it's very true.
And I think we're on track.
So let's talk about Jerry, but also you talked about earlier about the dog and the fight and, the fire and all that. Jerry very frankly talked about in the book that he was so competitive because of the trauma that he had as a child and growing up in that environment. And that fueled him,
Absolutely.
especially the 6 times losing to the Celtics in the finals.
Right.
That would basically kill anybody.
Right.
But then I think of the other athletes that across the board who have experienced trauma, but have somehow maybe unconsciously used that to fuel themselves. Kobe didn't necessarily have trauma, but here's a young African-American kid growing up in Italy, then plunked down in white suburban Philadelphia, and his sanctuary was basketball. He talked about that openly.
Right.
Where's the line there, Doc?
Well, I don't want to say that the traumas and the tragedies are bad and they need to get rid of it, because one, you will never. Those are indelibly etched tattoos of trauma.
Yeah.
What we call the invisible tattoos.
Right.
And to your point, they do fuel that hunger, that fight, the sense of focus, the sense of tomorrow may not be promised. Let me capitalize on the opportunity. So I'm not about dissuading any of that. But there's absolutely no data to support that if you give people a place to rest and lay down and start the healing, that somehow you're going to begin to compromise that fight and that energy.
Mm-hmm.
I propose that it's going to, in fact, bring it out even more.
Right.
Because not only do you have that sort of indelibly etched tattoo, but now you have an added genius that you've discovered about what else you can do.
Yeah.
Because when you are clouded with trauma, it helps you stay focused, but it doesn't give you the cleanest lens to look at bigger picture down the road.
Yeah. Well, Doc, I've been involved in the recovery world coming up to 23 years now. And, you know, to finally have a place to go and speak
Yes.
and feel safe
Yeah.
and not feeling alone, and there are people that have the same issues that you do, maybe completely different circumstances.
Absolutely.
It was the most liberating thing. And, you know, now that everything's out on the table and there's awareness and there's resources, what's the next level of that? Incorporating it into basically everyday life across the world of sports.
Well, there's two things that you said. One is that you've obtained a sense of change and balance. And obtaining and getting people to get to that spot, however they do, at whatever point in the journey they arrive, is important.
Yeah.
But it's more important to how do you maintain that. Obtaining is important, but how do you maintain it is even a bigger challenge. And so once you get there, it's the education about how do you persist.
Yeah.
How do you keep those friends? How do you keep the meetings? How do you keep educating yourself? How do you keep yourself active?
Sure.
How do you invest in your own self-care?
Right.
Your daily meditations, your activities, your photography, whatever it is you do.
Yeah.
And even though you may shift and pivot, you continue to take your blessing in different directions. All of that is maintaining
Yes.
what you, the place you now are at. And I
Right.
think that's so important.
But you're also speaking about doing the work,
Absolutely.
right? Just going in and speaking to somebody for an hour, but not doing the work when you're not in a meeting or not, you know, with your sponsor or not with your therapist or whatever, right?
You're a hypocrite when you do that,
Ex-
and you're just really smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yes.
the audience and those around you will spot that in a second.
Yeah, there
Because
you
you're
go.
not authentic. You're not.
Yeah.
You're not doing you.
Right. Right.
And they
Yeah.
know that. In fact, what you're modeling
Yes.
is that it's not okay to be not okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'll say it is,
Yeah.
but I don't really believe that. And
People,
that's a
people
silent.
pick up on that. Yeah, of course.
Instantly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk. You have a great saying that mental health is mental wealth.
That's correct.
Break that down a little bit.
Well, again, partly what got me into that thinking is a couple of things. One is that in the business of basketball or sport, it's money is important, profit.
Yes.
And I had to figure out a way, well, how can we get the attention of folks who are making decisions? And when I said your mental health is your mental wealth, that was an important segue into that. Because when you look at mental health and you go into the history, we don't have time on this show
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
But when you start looking at pharmaceutical companies, insurance, a whole bunch of other things, there is a sense of promoting mental illness, if I can be clear.
Because it's profitable, right? Keeps
It's
people
profitable, but
employed.
people don't want to talk about that.
Right. Right.
But that's part of the game. So I said, okay, well, how can we turn this sort of profit
Yeah.
into an awakening?
Yeah.
That, okay, let's keep the profit, but let's invest in a different portfolio. And the truth of the matter, our mental health
Yeah.
is everything. It shapes how we think, feel, and behave. It influences the relationships we have. It influences how we see ourselves situated in current and future context. It helps us set a North Star goal for the future.
Yeah.
You can't be without it.
Yes.
And the issue is then how do you discover it and how do you apply it to every aspect of your life, whether it's sports, business, family, relationships, leisure,
Yeah.
your spiritual practice.
Yeah.
All of that is your mental health.
Yeah, and for me, it breaks down to just being present in the moment. you
That's
know?
right.
And you like to talk about a lot of excess baggage that we carry around, right? If that baggage is weighing you down in the moment, like I know from my profession, if I'm not locked in and Kobe's bringing the ball down, ready to do a tomahawk dunk, but I'm all over the place, either distracted or whatever it is. I'm not doing my job, first of all, what people are paying me to do. And Kobe always talked about being in the moment. Like Phil, I don't know if he got that from Phil, but Phil always preached that. And there was people scoffing at that back in his Bulls days. But then they finally got, he's in the moment.
Yeah.
Let's embrace that moment, tune everything out, all the noise and everything. So Bill, at this summer league, you got a lot of young guys, right, who are just trying to make it in the league, right? Some of them are instant millionaires. That's a whole other conversation, which is fine. But then on the other side of that, we have retired players, many of whom struggle. Most of whom didn't make big money, who are really trying to find their way in life at a later stage of life. I mean, their professional career was over in their 30s.
Yes.
So are you of counsel to them as well and helpful on that journey?
Informally, yes, because I certainly participate in the Retired Players Association as an invited guest. And have had numerous conversations with a lot of what we call the OGs or the legends.
Right.
And it's always remarkable to me how they have starred in their day. And when I say back in the day, it was very different.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of socio-political politics, racism, just on and on.
Right.
And yet they somehow found a way where there was no way and didn't complain about it, just continued to hoop. And many of them, I can invoke maybe Spencer Haywood, who opened the path for these young, talented men to come out of high school to go into the pros.
Yeah, unbelievable what he did.
It's unbelievable.
Took
A
on the big
19-year-old kid going to the Supreme Court with Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah, with the older white owner of the Seattle Supersonics. Nobody talks about that too. Now, he took a risk as well.
That's right, absolutely.
So, it was an incredible story. Every one of these guys in the league should be sending Spencer a Christmas card.
But not only that, but I think there are a lot of guys who have similar stories.
Yes.
Their contribution is just untold.
Yeah.
I'm convinced. I'm not convinced that there's a deliberate attempt to elevate their story. I think there's some pressure to keep it more private.
Well, we're here at Legends of Sport. We're all about telling stories.
But that's what I'm saying. You are the one hallmark, and I say that literally and deliberately and intentionally. It's the work that you've been done for as long as you've been doing it, where you document not only visually but now auditory and visual, to really make that bridge. That you talk about being in the moment and the present. Well, I again like to focus on the present for the word that it means a gift. Because actually the present is really the culmination of everything you used to be and the vision that you have. So the future is in the moment. Everything is in the moment. And so to really make that moment happen, there's really two skills that are essential. Accountability and availability. And if you can be available and accountable for what you deliver, the rest will take care of itself.
Oh, I love that, Doc. Listen, we could talk. Got like 5 note cards here for you. So that means we're going to have to get you for a longer form conversation. Okay.
Look forward to it.
Great here to do this, but I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. We see each other all the time. We have little chit chats on the side, but now now I'm off the court. I got a lot of time.
Well, I have a time as well.
Thank
and
you,
again, you are a role model, and just all the best to you as your journey continues.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Okay,
my pleasure.
Thanks to Bill for an engaging and really, really interesting conversation. Mental health is mental wealth. That's a great concept for all of us to live by, especially in the world of sports. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning into this episode of the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm. Please follow them on Instagram at FujifilmX_US. Again, that's at FujifilmX_US. We love bringing these conversations to you, so please tell all your friends to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Legends of Sport, and our Instagram at Legends of Sport, And of course, my photography can be found on Instagram at ADBPhoto Inc. Big thanks as always to our producer, Carlin Barker, and our editors, Sean Gosser and Addison Shao. I also want to give a shout out to our good friend, the great AC Green. He launched a line of amazing cookies called Ironman 45 that are dairy-free, gluten-free, egg-free, and soy-free. I know, sounds kind of bland, but I got to tell you, they are really, really delicious. I never promote anything on this podcast that I don't personally use or like, and I love these cookies. You can find out where to buy them at www.nbaironman45.com. I'm going to say it again because they're really good. www.nbaironman45.com. Also, folks, we are about to launch an online auction with our good friends at Charity Buzz of photographic prints to benefit the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce's Small Business Disaster Recovery Fund. Proceeds will go directly to those who lost their businesses and livelihoods due to the recent horrific LA fires. Some lost their homes and their businesses. Please check our social media for the link. So many great and amazing friends in the photography world who contributed incredible images to this auction. Thank you to all of them for being a big part of our efforts to help, and to Charity Buzz for partnering with us on this. Big thanks to our dear friend Vanessa Bryant for this awesome hoodie. Please follow and support her Mamba and Mambacita Sports Foundation online and on Instagram. Thanks again to all our loyal followers, and we'll see you again next week for another great episode on the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm.